Alright, this is the 2025 Toronto Grand Prix, the men's 100 meter freestyle, Heat 3. We're looking at Ethan Jones in lane 4, and we're looking at Adnan Atwan in lane 8. Let's watch the race and then we'll review. Nice. Okay, let's come over to Ethan. So, taking a look initially on the start here. Let's see how long it takes till we go. Okay. So, probably right around there. Frame by frame, we're shooting in 60 frames per second in this video, I believe. I think I need to get a better system where I'm downloading and uploading things. This has been a bit degraded compared to some other videos, and that might be because I think maybe the camera itself was shooting at 30 and now I've converted it to 60. But the benefit is we can really just be looking for some fine movements. You can see he's reacting already, and there you go. So 0.02 probably slower than him. A little bit of a head duck. I'm not seeing much on the back foot there reacting, but there we go. We can definitely see that tension's being applied in the back. Good extension on that back leg. Good extension front leg. Maybe a bit more power by the looks of it. Like let's watch full speed here for a second. You see how watching that it kind of just looks, I'll do half speed here. The back leg definitely fires, but check out it just doesn't look like you're getting a bit more power. I don't know. Just looks to me like a bit more power on that front leg. It could be something to think about, okay? That initial shrug, let's try and cut that out. Let's order reparations, fire that back leg first. Pop, pop. Good entry, pretty good angle of attack. Little more tension, but in your torso, through your trunk, I think will help you. But I think part of that is, if you can get more power off that front leg, just be stronger on that front leg, then maybe that extra tension, that extra power that you're putting into the system is going to translate to what I want to see happening midair into the entry. Let's watch. Looking like a great kick, dude. You can see the undulation in the trunk again. Sorry, excuse me. You see that? Looking at your left arm here in the break. See your wrist? How kicked out on the left it is? A little hard to see because of the refraction going on with the water, but we can already see that you're peeling out left, and your middle finger would be pointing off in this angle, this direction. In the moment, but I'm pretty sure I've thought about this longer before. What athletic motion, maybe other than some pitcher in the MLB doing a fancy kind of flicking throw, in what athletic motion are we breaking the straight line from the tip of our middle finger to our elbow, right? We want to keep that line cohesive, right? It should be all out there, right? If I asked you to wield a hammer and swing down and hammer in a nail, if you kicked your wrist out on an angle like this, I mean, you know, if you hit the nail, you'd be lucky, but you'd also probably mess your wrist up on impact, right? Set that wrist into a good position for when we're trying to do a pull, right? It's just a weaker position to be in. But independent of that, looking like a great breakout. Yeah, great timing, great power. Maybe one more stroke without a breath I'd like. I'd like our first 3 strokes to truly be establishing strokes where we aren't obstructing it with a breath. Breath is going to be an obstruction. It's slow. It's in the way. If we could choose not to, we wouldn't breathe the entire 100. We kind of have to breathe in the 100. So a little bit longer where you're able to establish a higher velocity initially, or as high a velocity as possible without hamstringing yourself, and then get your breath in, right? If you spend the first 3 strokes hamstringing yourself, or even 1 stroke, and you know, albeit I think this is the 3rd stroke you're on, so it's at the tail end of this establishing period I'm talking about. But you know, if you hamstring yourself at the start, then your potential at the start of the race is going to be lower than it could be, and we want to maximize our potential through the race. The expectation is that we aren't going to get better as a race goes on. Theoretically, if we start the race well, we're only going to get worse. If we start the race poorly, yeah, we can get better as it goes on, but that's a fight I don't want to fight, and I hope you don't want to either. Looking very powerful, a lot of breathing going on, maybe a bit more breathing than I'd like in 100, especially in the first 50. I mean, maybe breathing in the first 50 is fine, but I definitely don't want to see this amount of breathing be continued in the next 50. By the looks of it, a pretty good turn. I just want to return to that in full speed. It might look like we're shortening up as we're approaching the wall, but that's a pretty big issue when it comes to this perspective. Check out that breath immediately on the breakout. Boom, boom. So another good, well-timed breakout, I'd say, but you're immediately hamstringing yourself on this second 50, right? Your potential is lower than it was in the first 50. You know, the potential in the first 50 is even higher because it's coming off of a dive rather than a turn. But, you know, like the logic follows that when we are at a greater disadvantage, we want to make sure that we shore up every possible defense. And this is something that we can easily defend against, right? Choosing to do our breakout the way we know how to, you know, maybe it could be a bit longer too. You know, if you could get an extra meter at the speed that you're able to push off under, that's a good improvement. But then get 3 solid strokes in where you are establishing the stroke rate you want, you're establishing the hold that you want, you're letting yourself get to the speed and maintain the speed that you want, and then get your breaths in. Absolutely fine. But right now, you're instantly keeping yourself at a little bit of a lower threshold than we could be. I'm going to go full speed. This is looking pretty good from here. A lot of breathing, right? So I'd be okay with the breathing in the first 50, but I'd want to see a reduction in the second 50. This is interesting because you guys are neck and neck, and I hope you can appreciate the issues with perspective on the last couple of meters there, right? Like who's in the lead? It looks like Adnan is, like by a margin, right? And yet the perspective shift is that actually you two are neck and neck. If anything, you're in the lead, right? So when we're watching videos like this is a perfect example. Not to necessarily trust everything that you can see, even with the camera. You know, but even there, right? Adnan's got maybe like a fingernail on you. It's kind of an interesting moment. Let's come back to full speed. 10 meters out, I'd love to see the no breath going forward, because it is ultimately a decision on your part to either suffer now and reap the benefit now, or, you know, have the misguided attempt to make sure that you can make it to the end. This is where I'm talking about grit in practices. Deciding to embrace the suck, deciding to embrace the pain that it's going to cause, because the reality is if you're feeling like your body is, you know, coming up on a die, I mean, if you don't practice getting into this very highly stressful position where you're now, from this point onward, going to be holding your breath, if you don't practice that in practice, like, yeah, it's not going to work well for you. But if you can practice, finishing really strong and powerfully, there's going to be advantage to be gained. I just came out of that cut because I kind of lost track of what I was going with. But the point is essentially that as long as you can practice coming into the finish strong and you train knowing how to finish strong, then what we want to be looking for and what we can have is 15 to 10 meters where we are able to actually accelerate into the finish. We can see that in the last 5 meters you choose not to breathe, right? Which is great, but let's extend that out to 8 meters, to 10 meters, to 15 meters as we can, because our bodies in those last 15 meters, in those last 10 meters, if we're in pain and feeling the die coming on, breathing isn't going to help us in that moment, right? Like our body has already reached the state where it's feeling like that. Bringing oxygen into your system, there's not enough time for that oxygen being brought into your system for this entire 15 meters, for this entire last 7-10 seconds of the race. Like it's not going to do anything for you. What it will do for you is now that you've finished the race and you're heavily breathing here, the oxygen you breathe back here, yeah, it's going to make your recovery faster. Like you'll feel better sooner, but like we don't care about you post race, right? You don't care about you post race. We care about you in this 15 meters, right? What can we do to make these last 15 meters really dangerous? The breathing is an obstruction, and on top of that, increasing velocity in swimming takes time. Like you can't just make a move. If you just decided to spike your stroke rate, spike your kick, spike your total energy level, like let's say you had a reserve waiting in the wings, okay, now I'm gonna go. You were just playing with these guys. Big spike of energy. Great, amazing. It's gonna take you like 4 strokes to increase velocity truly to that next level. So if we start holding our breath from 5 meters out, like great, we see an immediate benefit because our stroke essentially smoothens out and it stops having an obstruction every stroke cycle. Yes, there's an immediate gain, but the increased speed that we would be getting by holding our breath doesn't have enough room to come to fruition. So thinking about extending our finishes where we're holding our breath, okay, but you got to practice that. You got to practice being into that very stressful place, because if you just go into OUAs and you go, I haven't been training to finish strong like this, like you might get into OUAs and you might hit, if you start holding your breath at 15 meters, you might go 10 more meters, reach the flags and go, my body is not prepared. I'm not psychologically prepared to be in the amount of pain that I am. So much pain is psychological. I mean, pain is psychological. Your body, unless you practice it, is going to be screaming at you that, oh my God, you're going to hurt so much more 10 seconds from now by not breathing here. And it's like, we got to be able to hear that voice and ignore that voice. One final thing, the final stroke coming into the wall here, maybe that right stroke should have been the last, because we can see that you end up on your side here, right? But you kind of don't end up traveling very far. You probably could have glided here because like you got long arms, like your hand is probably like a foot and a half away from the wall here. And do you only travel a foot and a half per stroke in freestyle when you're sprinting? Like, no, you travel way farther than that. And arguably your touch is here and you can see how flat you are. So you had to fit this stroke in to match the distance to the wall. Like your head is a foot away from here. You probably could have just glided, gliding head down, arm out, near approximating a one-arm streamline, probably would have been faster. But overall, nice. Let's come back to the start, and we're going to look at Adnan. Okay, far lane here. I like the setup position. Good lean forward, good legs by the looks of it. There's your set. Oh, was that actually a go? Yeah, there's your go. You can see your back foot move there a little bit. I like that it's clear it's your back leg that's firing first. Pretty good extension. Do you see how it kind of floats up though on that back foot? To me, that means you could probably be driving back and down a little bit more rather than letting it kind of flip up. So some energy being misplaced. You've got good extension, but let's really like drive that wedge off its rails back into the poor officials, right? Like send it flying. Of course, you won't do that because it's secure, but right, like you want to break the block every time you dive off of it. Good extension on the front leg, but again, like so much energy seems to be flipping you heels overhead, like your head's kind of rolling down, your heels are going up. Now this is getting us into a good position for entry, but you know, that little flip is telling me that more energy needs to be pushed from here to here rather than the energy being pushed from here to here. Good streamline. Little like floppy's not the term, but a little loose in the body position on entry, right? We can kind of see you slip into the water. I'd like a bit more tenseness in the core. We cannot really see you, although we can kind of see you there, a couple frames. So let's see what we can see. It looks like a pretty decent kick. Hard to tell with the refraction and also distance and the glare, but pretty good underwater breakout, I'd say. Immediately with the kick, immediately with the stroke. Very nice. Head's coming a little high on the breath there. Let's come to full speed. Okay, cut you off there. You can see when you breathe how long it takes you to get that recovery. Your left arm recovers, your right arm recovers, your left arm recovers, then your right arm takes longer. 2 breaths inside the flags. Let's try and avoid that, right? If you want to listen to me talk for 10 minutes to Ethan about breathing and stuff, feel free to. It's always good to watch each other's swims, and if you have analysis, you know, listening to other people's analysis is also an advantage. Excuse me. Breathing is a disruptor. I was just getting to that earlier with your stroke, right? Like mid-pool, I'm going, you know, breathing is taking its toll on every stroke cycle that you're choosing to breathe on. Well, for 5 meters, because you're anticipating having to hold your breath for, what, a couple of seconds, you've decided to hamstring yourself and slow down, right? Let's not make that decision. Let's make the decision that independent of the pain we're about to experience underwater, right, we're still going to maintain the highest potential speed coming into the wall, right? A swim is ultimately won because you spend more meters in the race swimming faster. It's a weird way to break a swim down, right? But if you spend 45 meters swimming really well and then 5 meters swimming not so well, the guy that is going to swim 50 meters as fast as he can, like, he's going to have an advantage over you, and you're giving him that. So this is awesome because it's a low-hanging fruit. It's a decision-based issue. It's not a technique-based issue. It's not a toughness or a strength or any other kind of physiological. It's a psychological issue, right? You have to be willing to make the decision to experience future pain and present pain at the for the cost of I will swim faster as a result. Like we want to basically take that deal as often and for as much as we can, because that's one kick breakout. Like there's no justification for getting 2 extra breath in for that, right? If you were going to do a 15-meter breakout, I would still be arguing, no, you gotta be coming inside the flags, honestly 7 meters into the wall. You gotta not be breathing for those 7 meters. Hit the wall, and then you want to do 15 meters underwater. I can at least understand if you're breathing at 5 meters then, but a single kick for technically not even 5 meters, right? Like your head is breaking out, well, maybe, okay, at 5 meters, fine. But like a perfect only 5 meter underwater, we gotta not be doing that breath. Now, something else to think about is, of course, this is only a 5 meter breakout. I get it. But if you can challenge yourself to even just do a 6 meter breakout, then we've seen a pretty nice increase, okay? Underwaters should only be as long as they are fast. I guarantee you that you are tough enough and able enough that you can work and get an extended underwater from 5 to 6 meters. Make that your challenge, okay? And then when you've gone from 5 to 6 meters, then you can start talking about 7 meters. And then when you've done 7 meters, do 8 meters. Don't suddenly jump to, well, I have to do 8 meters underwater, because if the first 5 are fast and the next 3 are slow, then you're wasting time, right? You're spending more of the race, more meters operating slow. We want to preserve speed. We want to maintain speed. We don't want to be doing things that are slowing us down. If our underwater is so long that it's slowing us down, then it's not worth doing. But putting in the work, putting in the practice to extend our underwater from 5 to 6, it's valiant, okay? Right, what is that, like a 20% increase? We love 20% increases. Again, great breakout by the looks of it. Like, you are smashing it with the kick, you're smashing it with the pull. Little bit of a question on how high your feet are coming in the kick, right? We're seeing a couple frames where I can see almost like the top of your foot there. You're technically kicking air at that point, right? And kicking off of air, pushing off of air, is classically very ineffective unless you are a bird with wings, which we are not, right? So keeping this energy of kick is sweet, but getting it contained, a smaller amplitude but the same energy, is something to maybe consider, okay? Your left foot seems to be, well, I say that and then literally a frame appears where I see the top of your foot on your left. I mean, I'd say generally your left foot seems to not be as much of a culprit as your right. Let's go to full speed. I can't quite tell if you're breathing. I think you're breathing, yeah. Breathing every stroke. Coming into the wall. Same thing I said to Ethan. The last 15 meters of the race, the last 10 meters of the race, we want to start getting into the mentality that it's like, this is where I'm not going to breathe. There's a twofold reason for that, okay? One, breathing gets in our way. We can see that you're loping along, okay? Because you're breathing every stroke. It's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. It's not very even. It's asymmetric, okay? So you're only providing, essentially there's a pause in your stroke, right? It might feel really strong to lope. In fact, I wouldn't recommend, if loping feels weak, that you lope, but people often lope because it feels so strong. They get to go like a 1, 2. It's a good feeling, but a consistent symmetrical stroke is applying basically the same amount of pressure over a more consistent spread of time, and the time that we're spreading on is like the stroke cycle, however long it takes to do that stroke cycle, whether you're loping or not. If you're loping, part of that stroke cycle is spent not taking a stroke. If you are taking symmetric strokes, like at all times you are basically taking a stroke. And there's also less of a difference with bouncing. But the point I was actually getting to was there are 2 benefits to not breathing, just in general, but especially making it as a move coming into the finish of a race. One, by not breathing, we are not obstructing our stroke every single stroke cycle, which means that we're going to see an immediate benefit. Our stroke is going to stabilize, our stroke is going to be faster, just automatically, right? It's going to be more efficient. 2, that efficiency over time will yield a greater velocity. Making moves in swimming takes time for it to appear. You see inexperienced or unaware swimmers, especially in freestyle, you get people that try and look for other people making a move, countering those moves, and it's the silliest game to play, because by the time you've seen the other guy accelerating, he made his move 5 strokes ago, and then you countering that stroke is going to take you 5 strokes. If you, let's say, this is the same thing I proposed to Ethan, if at this moment, okay, let's say that you were just messing with him, you have this major reserve of energy left. You've just been literally holding on to it until now. Okay, and suddenly you just spike through the roof on your energy. Okay, you're literally just messing around in this 100. Boom, I'm going to now go for it. It's going to take you 5 meters for that velocity to increase, right? And if you want a perfect example of that, go push off at the next practice. Do 5 strokes out to the water. like a 1 out of 10 effort, and then try and spike to 10 out of 10. And you tell me how long, how many meters, how many strokes it takes spiking at 10 out of 10 effort for you to actually achieve like 10 or even honestly like 7 out of 10 velocity. It's going to take you, if it's short course, the rest of the length. If it's long course, it's going to take you like 10 meters to do that, right? Going from slow to fast is hard. It takes time. If you had this crazy spike, you wouldn't see the outcome until here. Well, we already talked about how by not breathing, every single stroke is going to be more efficient. Well, that efficiency builds over time. If you are gassing yourself, you don't have some surplus of energy waiting in the wings because you're messing around with the guys in your race. Choosing not to breathe 5, 7 meters in front of you, you're going to be moving faster than you would be if you are breathing every single stroke. So we literally have an opportunity to be traveling faster into the wall than we are. It is hard to do that psychologically because we are going, oh my God, I'm gassing myself, I'm about to die. I need to breathe to not die, right? Well, fair, but like most pain, it's in our heads, and what we're actually, when we're listening to that voice saying, I gotta breathe, otherwise I'm gonna die, on one hand, do we practice putting ourselves into that stressful position? Probably not, and we should, in practices, be putting ourselves into this very stressful position where we can hear that voice say, back off, be careful, and then ignore that voice. But two, like that voice is wrong. That voice is saying, you gotta back off or it's gonna really hurt. And it's like, yeah, after the race, there's no way to be breathing here and help preserve your body's energy systems in race. All it's saying to you is that, hey, 30 seconds from now, after your race, if you don't breathe, you're going to be in a lot more pain than you usually are. But get into the headspace where you don't care what you feel like 30 seconds after the race. Like, you will have time to recover. Breathing now is slowing you down and helping you recover after the race. Let's invert that. I want you to hurt more after the race and not slow down. In fact, I'd like you to speed up. So something to consider, right? Start with doing it, first of all, inside the last 5 meters. We see you breathe all the way into the finish on this stroke. Which, coming to the final point, probably this stroke could have been your last stroke. We can see where your head is. We can see, like, if I wanted to, I could count out the number of whatever these round things are called in a lane rope, okay? And, like, how many of them are there? I don't know, but it's like you're not a meter away from the wall even, right? And your hand is certainly, if you're reaching, much closer to the wall than your head is, obviously. How far away is your hand, right? Is it right there? How far away is that? Is it a foot? Is it even a foot and a half, right? Maybe the perspective sucks, right? But, I think it's kind of like a foot away from the wall. If your distance per stroke in the middle of the pool was only 1 foot per stroke, A, you wouldn't be at U of T. But B, then I'd go, yeah, you need to take another stroke. You need to eat up that last little distance. Your distance per stroke is not 1 foot, right, per stroke. Your distance per stroke is much farther than that, which means that this should be a glide. And we can prove that because A, you have to recover extremely fast on your left arm to make it fit into this space. You've moved your right arm back, right? And actually, this is great. Let's take a look at your shoulder, your left shoulder, and how far it moves. Like a foot. And you land flat. Your shoulders are even on touch. So we're not stretching out and reaching for the wall, right? So I think that last stroke was a mistake. We should have glided into the finish, and you would have had a faster time, right? Streamline is the fastest body position to be in. Even if we only have one arm up in front of us, as long as we can get our head down, tucked up against our bicep, like lunging and reaching in that glide, if you are traveling fast, that glide will preserve speed over distance. A glide is only the wrong move if you glide so far that you are allowed to slow down, right? It is the same concept as a breaststroke stroke, or a breaststroke pullout is more apt, right? In a breaststroke pullout, We dive, we enter, we are supposed to glide, and we teach little kids like, oh, hold it for 3 seconds, but that's an arbitrary number. The actual answer is you hold that glide position for as long as you can until the moment before you're about to lose velocity. Then you do, and I mean the modern, is do a kick or a pull, and then again, you glide for as long as you can until you're about to lose velocity. Then you do whichever one you didn't do, or right? So if you kick, pull, then you pull, kick, whatever. And then you should be towards the surface of the water, but then you only do a breakout once the glide is over again, right? You're constantly maintaining velocity, and you're only doing the next thing before a slowdown occurs. You don't just throw it all at once together. We know if a glide is too long because you've given it a college try to glide out and touch the wall as fast as you can, and we could reasonably register that, oh, he glided and he slowed down in the glide. If you glide and it's like, no, he was moving as fast as he was when he was swimming, which will happen for like a foot or two maybe, then you're good. There was no way for you to be faster than that, right? If you're traveling at the speed that you were taking strokes, what else could you have done? Arguably, you shouldn't be taking strokes if it's not going to increase your speed, right? If you can do a single stroke because you're Superman at the start of the race and get to the whole other end, right, in the same time that you would if you took 50 strokes, you would take a single stroke. We want to expend the least amount of energy and get the most out of it. But overall, I'm talking about all the little in-betweens and all these little tiny decisions that we can make. The race itself was really, really nice. We have a lot of low-hanging fruit that we can improve on, and that's the fun thing, is that we can, by making some decisions in practices, making some decisions on race day, if we can put those decisions into practice, make those decisions on race day, and I think that you'll see some fun things. Good race though, guys.